My name is Robert Lewis, and I'm the co-chair of Greenspoon Marder's Alcohol Beverage Industry Group, and I'm the managing shareholder of the Miami office. Miami is the gateway to Latin America, South America, and the Caribbean, and it's a natural synergy for our firm to start an office here in Miami. The Alcohol Beverage Industry Group represents clients in the alcohol industry, so that constitutes manufacturers and importers, which we call the upper tier. It also constitutes distributors, and that's the tier, the second tier, that delivers alcohol from suppliers to retailers. And then we have the retail tier, and the retail tier are your bars, nightclubs, restaurants, the actual venues that sell alcohol to the public. And the legal needs for those three tiers differ. So with respect to the importers and producers and manufacturers, we deal with TTB, or Federal Alcohol Labeling and Compliance issues. We deal with importation issues. We deal with federal taxing issues and trade practice compliance issues, because alcohol is a very highly regulated field based on the 21st Amendment and the end of Prohibition. With respect to distributors, we deal with distribution agreements, national distribution agreements, also trade practices of how alcohol can be marketed and sold to the public. And on the retail tier, we get involved in land use and zoning issues with respect to the opening of bars, nightclubs, and restaurants, because every jurisdiction has specific regulations as to where these venues can be placed. For example, there are distance requirements that a bar, for example, cannot be too close to a religious institution or a public school. So we get involved in those legal issues, as well as the routine licensing and permitting, the brokering of liquor licenses for bars and nightclubs as well, and basically beverage law and the interpretation of beverage law. How alcohol is sold, how it's advertised, how it can be marketed. It has a unique body of law to it, and we are experts in that field.
So it's all civil?
Well, it's all primarily administrative.
Okay, administrative.
And it does have civil law components when we deal with litigation, like beer franchise litigation or franchise litigation for malt beverages or wine or spirits. So there is a civil aspect to it.
Okay.
There's also a criminal aspect to it when we have licensees that break the law, and we provide them with that representation as well.
So what's your day-to-day or week-to-week activity like? What kinds of things do you have to do for this kind of work?
Well, I think it varies. One thing I love about this job is that it's never routine.
Okay.
So one day we could be dealing with a very complex land use issue. The next day we could be dealing with a complex regulatory issue, a permitting issue. The next day we could be dealing with a national distribution agreement and the nuances that would go with that. Bringing new products to market and labeling and formula issues for those new products, and excise tax situations and things like that. So it's one thing that I do truly enjoy is the lack of routines. This office, we try to build this office with different practice areas that synergistically work well with one another. So we have white collar or criminal law, we have corporate law, we have real estate, and we have litigation, we have family law as well, all working together to service our clients. We also have trust and estates and asset protection. When we look at alcohol beverage and the alcohol beverage industry, the trends are alcohol integration. What we're finding are existing businesses, for example, let's take the movie theater industry, that is looking to see what they can do to help provide a full-service entertainment venue, and they're adding that amenity of adult beverages to their client options. And they're also, as part of that concept, they're going to recliners, and they're making it more advantageous to not only see a movie, but see a movie in a relaxing environment and also be able to have a meal, so that instead of going to dinner and a movie, it's dinner and a movie at the same time. And so that is what we're seeing throughout the country. Our firm happens to be heavily involved in assisting that industry help to achieve those objectives throughout the country. We're also seeing other businesses like Starbucks and coffee shops that want to add that same amenity as well. We're seeing sports and entertainment centers become more of an on-premise venue for alcohol and nightclubs to become full service. So we're seeing this alcohol integration model to help boost sales and to create destination locations for retail venues that wouldn't typically have the adult amenity. Mm-hmm. And we're also dealing with craft and the sort of the birth of the craft industry, craft breweries, craft distilleries. Mm-hmm. It's a trend that's been around for a little while, but it's continuing with full force, and where you have people that are focusing on smaller brands, basically locally created, using old school methods, and people are identifying with craft as being better, handmade. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing a lot more upstarts. We're starting a lot more craft breweries and distilleries needing to be licensed and coming into business throughout the country. Yeah, there are several craft breweries and craft distilleries in South Florida as well as throughout the country. It's a trend that we're seeing nationally across the country. And I think also the internet and e-commerce is another big trend. You know, basically retailers using online ordering for patrons and customers, and third-party delivery services in order to help market brands and increase sales for national retailers and regional retailers. Well, I think that there are many large alcohol venues in South Florida. I think that, you know, Florida being a tourist state, you know, alcohol is a major part of tourism. So we certainly have a lot of bars and entertainment venues here, you know, in South Florida that I believe help support the economy specifically. I mean, I wish I had a crystal ball, you know, as to the future of the economy, but I think that, you know, the economy is in a much better position today than it was a few years ago. Yeah. And I think that you could tell the real estate market is coming back, and when the real estate market comes back and there's development here in South Florida, that also creates a lot of ancillary businesses. And certainly when we talk about alcohol, it creates more need for on-premise locations. And that helps to drive the economy upwards.
What else, or what the things that drive business activity, what else could be done to increase that, do you think?
With what?
For economic growth. Besides building, what could be done to increase business growth, economic development in South Florida?
Well, you know, I think it all stems from real estate and real estate development, and I think that feeds growth. You know, per se. You know, I think here in Miami, you know, being a gateway, you know, to Latin America, South America, and the Caribbean, there's more opportunities, you know, for growth here.